What's up, Uyghur Nation? Welcome to our fourth episode of Chit Chat and Chai. I'm your co-host, Lala Mehmet.
And I'm your co-host, Nirperi Kelpin.
And today we are joined with guests all the way from Australia. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Nazira. I was born and raised in Australia, Adelaide. I'm part of the Poet team. I'm not sure if you've heard of Poet, People of East Turkestan. It's our organization that we have here in Adelaide. I'm in the social media part of the group. And yeah, Nas, you can go now.
Okay, I'm Assalamualaikum everyone. I'm Nasrullah Mehman. I'm also born and raised in Australia, Adelaide. And like what Nazira said, we are part of the People of East Turkestan. It's a youth group based in Adelaide, which is under the East Turkestan Australian Association, ETAA, and I'm the secretary of that group.
I was meant to say that.
Yeah.
The accent throws me off every single time.
Yeah, that's because majority of your like watchers are like American. But like after this, like because
Maybe
we're
after
about
this.
influence, you know.
Maybe after this, yeah.
Uyghur болғандан кейін çay bilen başlayalım.
Oh shit.
Okay, first I'll do to the Miman. No, not the su. Okay, Nazira. Chit Chat and Chai, that was the chai. The first question we wanted to start off with today is, obviously, we live in two very different regions in the world. And you guys haven't been to the US. We haven't been to Australia. So we were wondering if you guys could tell us a little bit about the Uyghur community in Adelaide, where you guys reside.
Okay, so I mean, alhamdulillah, like the community here in Adelaide, like, you know, it's like very tight knit. Like we don't have as many people as there is in America, as I've heard. Like in America, like Virginia itself, where you guys are, I heard there's a lot of Uyghurs there. But alhamdulillah, like not many people, but our community is very tight knit. Like they're very together. We were born together, we were raised together. And then, you know, so we all grew up like siblings, and it's just like this bond that we have, like alhamdulillah. It's like we're very blessed, like, you know, because I know that a lot of other places, they don't have this bond. And even like cities in Australia, like Sydney, Melbourne, unfortunately the Uyghur community there, they're not really together, and that is part of because of the distance.
So how much is the distance between those places?
So Adelaide is like a relatively very small city. Like you can literally finish the whole city in like 30 minutes. That's how small it is.
Wow,
But the state itself is pretty big. The actual city, the CBD is small. So from Melbourne's closer to us. It goes South Australia, Melbourne, Sydney, then Canberra, which is the capital city.
It goes South Australia, Victoria, Queensland.
New South Wales.
I don't know any of what you're saying. Like you're just speaking words to me.
I know Melbourne.
It's
Australia.
Australia.
I know Melbourne, but the rest.
Like inside Melbourne, like the Uyghurs that reside just in Melbourne, they're like really don't associate with each other as much. Also, because like recently we also had a soccer tournament, and then so like a few people from like Sydney, Brisbane, all that came, and we just got to, like talking, and then they were like, yeah, like, you know, they always say this, like I envy you guys because, you know, there's just a sense of community, whereas we don't have that in Sydney or Brisbane or Melbourne. Yeah.
I think a lot of it is like with the youth, the ones that are more active, you hear more about them. The ones that are not really active and don't really care about Uyghur, being Uyghur, they're more so like, I don't claim to be Uyghur, I'm Turkish, like I'm like,
that is a
like they don't claim to be Uyghur.
I think it's like the generation like right under our generation. So like the kids that are still in high school right now, a lot of them claim to be like Turkish in schools. So like I'll talk to them and they'll be like, oh, it's just too much work to explain like the whole Uyghur situation. Like we're like similar to Turkish people anyway. We're like Turks anyway. So I just say I'm Turkish. I just say I'm Uzbek, things like that. And like, no, we're not, you know, we're not Turkish. We're not Uzbek. Like, we're Uyghurs. And like the only people who will say that we are and speak up for us are ourselves. And I think that's so shocking. But I wonder like why there's like that difference, you know, between like generations that are like so next to each other. I don't know.
I was just gonna say, since we were on that topic, what makes me like really mad is that there are people who claim to be Chinese. They just say, "Oh, I'm from China." That's what really pisses me off. Like, okay, like say Turkish, say Turkic. Okay, I guess that's okay. But like, how are you gonna go and tell them that you're Chinese?
Actually, it also remember that freaking Uyghur lady the Chinese
Yeah.
consulate
Oh,
and
don't.
put their
That
finger
day
up
of
at
the
us.
protest. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
What
Listen,
did she
so we're
do?
having a huge protest. She's basically a spy, like she's a spy for the Khtala, okay?
Her
And we didn't
husband is
even
Chinese.
her husband is Chinese,
Mm.
she's Uyghur herself. I didn't know that she was a spy. A lot of the Uyghurs didn't know she was a spy, right? And so one day we're having a protest in front of the Chinese consulate, okay? And it was like a huge protest. There were people there, like we don't usually get
500
numbers,
people.
but it was so many people, right? And out of nowhere, oh my God, God help me, she walks into the Chinese consulate and you just hear screaming like Quebec, like High-end, like, you know, it was just screaming at her. And Nas, I don't even remember what the protest was for, but it was like a pretty important protest.
No, it was because it was
Oh my
the
God.
grand opening of the Chinese consulate.
Yeah, the grand opening. And she went
Yeah.
in there as behalf of like the Uyghurs.
No,
So
if she just went in there, like it's bad enough. She even before she went in, she said salam to everyone.
yeah, she went on behalf of Xinjiang or like
Yeah,
the
she
Uyghurs.
literally went in behalf of that Xinjiang group
Oh
because
my
apparently
God.
I think
I
she's the
was
president or
crying.
something of that group.
I was literally crying because I was like, I did not know that Uyghurs could be like high-ends, you know. And she was like smiling and waving, and we were all screaming at her. We're outside of the fence, she was inside, and she was like looking at us. And then afterwards, like she got scared because we were screaming, so she just looked down and walked around, and she had like 10 security members after her.
Yeah.
And then she walked out, and
Somebody like punched her?
no,
Yeah.
they tried to. I think they pulled her hair or
Oh,
something.
no,
But
someone did punch her.
no, I
Someone
don't.
did punch her.
Yeah,
Someone
no,
punched her in the
Wow.
back.
someone hit her,
Jesus.
and we were just like, it was the worst day of my life. I can't lie.
Yeah.
That's so crazy to think, like, what do you think they're gaining? Money?
Money,
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, they
Money.
do. That's
Sure.
like they do get a lot of
100%.
money in return. They're guaranteed their own families, like
Yeah,
safety
no
and
party with me.
future.
Yeah, no, I was just about to say that.
Why do you know so much? Why do you know so much?
Guys, don't put me on the spot like this. Like this.
We're not exposing you.
It's
Yeah.
just I just feel like it's so unfortunate how there's actually Uyghur people out there who go out and actually be spying on their fellow community members.
Right?
What are they even
And,
spying on? Like, what information are they giving to the
For
government?
real.
just like, for example, what the people outside of China are doing, you know what I'm saying? For example, what type of events are being organized? I guess they
And
just
who
want to
is
know the
organizing the
situation.
events?
Yeah, so they
that.
know whose family to pressure back home, you know?
Because at our protests, we get like so many Khtais like coming up to us, sorry, Chinese people coming up to us and like recording us and taking our photos to the point where somebody in the protest has to go and be like, can you stop? Because we're feeling
Yeah.
uncomfortable. And a lot of them, like you won't even believe it, are like literal CCP government spies, you know, they will send our pictures and our videos to the government. And then they always like walk off and like swear at us in Chinese or something, you know. But like, I think they're just spying on us to tell the government whose families is involved, because my family is very involved, and I know that if we even went like even thought about going to work, then we would be like, you know.
Yeah. That's kind of interesting because, like, you know, like the US holds a lot of protests as well. There's big protests where a lot of people show up, and then there's like, you know, the normal protests where not a lot of people show up, but we have protests, and our, you know, Uyghur American Association organizes a lot of them. But I don't think we've ever experienced this extent of like spying or like people who are opposing our efforts to advocate, which I think is so interesting. Like, why do you guys think that you guys are experiencing more of this opposition in terms of like Chinese people coming up to you, Uyghurs who seem to be turning their backs on their community and things like that?
Here in Australia, like the Australian government and the Chinese government, the amount of like deals that they have with each other. Like I have a friend in the military. I won't say his name obviously because I don't want to get him sniped or some shit. Like
Why did
but,
your
like,
mind go there?
Nasrullah, maybe you're the sus one here, not me.
Maybe he's the spy.
not joking.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he pretty much told me that like because he works in the infantry. It was infantry, no infantry. Sorry, infantry, which is like
Yeah.
Stop it! Come on.
You're really on a
Yeah,
roll.
he works
Okay,
in
let's let the
infantry.
man talk. Let's let the man
I
talk.
know, man. Come on.
Right.
Yeah, so he works in infantry, and he told me that like Chinese people apparently they were hacking the Australian radios, the Australian military's radios, submarines, like multiple cases of like Chinese people infiltrating, you know, like things that can get to like sensitive information. And then, but again, despite this, the Australian government is still like just recently they signed another new deal with them, Like there is such a heavy like Chinese influence in Australia.
Mm.
Like it's crazy. Like all our I think I heard about 60% or something. It was a high number of Australian ports are owned by Chinese companies back in China.
Crazy.
But I feel like that's the case everywhere, though. I mean,
No,
I
it's
feel
with
like
their, I think it has to do something with their Belt and Road Initiative, especially because
Yeah,
Australia
it is
closed their
100%.
yeah,
plant on the
I
eastern
mean, but
coast.
Yeah.
also the US is also greatly influenced by China, in my opinion. The US also lets a lot of international Chinese students in, and there obviously have been cases of Chinese employees at different government facilities hacking into the system and stuff and being caught as spies, but the US also continues to let them in. And it's other countries too, you know,
Yeah.
everywhere you go, they're just there.
And also with the Uyghurs, the traders, honestly, that like I'm pretty sure that it's all over like every place where there's Uyghurs in diaspora, there's at least a few spies there.
I
Like
agree.
you don't know who they are, but they're 100% is. Like we recently, like not
What?
recently, but like a
Really?
few months ago,
Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
100%. Yeah.
Best friends probably a spy.
Who
You
do you
wouldn't even
think?
know.
Wait, who do you think in our community could be a spy in Nutbedi? I literally can't think
Azhar.
of
No, I'm
anyone.
joking. Not Azhar. Not Azhar. That's how.
The whole
Okay.
point of being one is to hide your identity well, so people can't tell that you're one, so you can comfortably go to these events and have no one think or notice you as one, right? So I don't know how we're supposed to be able to tell, but I definitely think there are. I agree with what Nasrullah said.
Even though there is a lot of Chinese influence in the US, I think they've been cutting back on that very recently, especially during the Trump era, which was not a great area. Not a great
Yeah,
era.
shit, y'all went through that. I forgot about that.
But
That was the meme here. Like, that was the biggest meme. Like, y'all
yeah,
went through that.
we were in our Trump era. It was not the best, but we did cut back a lot on our China ties. And even in Biden's administration now, there's been a lot of pushback with, Chinese influence in America. But I think like Australia's influence in regards to China and Chinese relations has to do with their proximity with the country. And I don't know if you guys have heard about like the Belt and Road Initiative, but this has happened in a lot of countries where they're taking very important ports. So China right now, because their economy is like booming at a very rapid pace, they're loaning billions and billions of dollars to these really poor countries that will never be able to pay this money back, especially because there's interest. And China knows this going into it. There's this term that's been coined called debt traps that China uses for like Sri Lanka, for example. Sri Lanka very recently declared bankruptcy, and their most important port, their harbor, which is very, very significant in terms of international trade because it's a port that a lot of ships stop on, was seized by China, and they were given a 99-year lease on this port called the Hambantota port in Sri Lanka. And I just think that's so crazy. And this is happening in a lot of North African countries as well, which are still, developing economically. And China's taking advantage of that and their strategic locations. And I think like that kind of connects to what you guys are saying, like the opposition you're seeing, the Chinese opposition, the influence in Australia. I think even though the US has some sort of influence, I think it's pretty different. And that can't be due to like the distance that there is. But I didn't want to.
Yeah. Also, like with Australia, it also ties back all the way to like the gold rush era, because like that in that point there were like so many Chinese people coming in even back then, for gold, and that's why there's a heavy influence because there's a lot of like rich Chinese families in Australia, like that are in the top like 1% of Australia or 5% of like millionaires, billionaires, and that is all due to because of old money, from money that was passed on from like the gold rush era. Like in Sydney itself, like if you go to Sydney, you think it's literally China. Like it's crazy how there's literally by now every time I go there, I get surprised. I see more Chinese people than I do see Australian people.
Yeah, literally.
But just a disclaimer, we do not hate Chinese people. We are separating them from the government. We are Uyghurs collectively are against the Chinese Communist Party, but not the Chinese people.
Our city, Adelaide, is so small, but yet we still have a Chinatown. Like,
yeah, that's so true. Not just Chinatown, the freaking Chinese consulate.
Yeah, so when they put the consulate about 10 minutes from our Uyghur suburb, it was kind of, everyone was just kind of like, well, that's really awkward because now they're literally spying on us. And that was a big part of our protest and our chants and in our speeches and stuff like that. Because a lot of Uyghurs, I know that a lot of Uyghurs felt uncomfortable now that there's a whole Chinese consulate right next to us.
It's a bit of like, it looks like a military compound pretty much. The amount of cameras that are surrounding that area, like let's say each pole, let's say there's like 10 poles on one side. Each one of those poles of those 10 poles has like 3 cameras on it.
You really sat there and counted. He looked at you.
He knows exactly where everything is located. Okay.
Yeah, I've been there because the amount of we've like thought about like egging the place or like just vandalizing it.
I don't know if you want to say that.
You know what would be a good nickname for Nasrullah? You guys know Lil Nas X?
Baby bet, hey, couple racks.
No, don't do that. No, don't. No. Nurpari, there's limits. No, don't do that. No, listen. My name is Nas, like the old school rapper Nas, not Lil Nas X. No, don't do that. The amount of time I have children come up to be like, hey, Lil Nas X.
I thought he said I have children for a second. I was like, what?
I'm scared.
Okay. Now to move on and have like a little turn in the conversation, I have a question that I want to ask Nazira. You know you're a hijabi, right? So do you ever feel like as a hijabi or like a hijabi Uyghur Muslim girl, do you ever feel like there are different expectations placed on you by outsiders or others in general?
By outsiders or like people in my community?
You can talk about both, whichever one you want to like address.
I think in general there is, to be honest, like between a hijabi, a non-hijabi, and then like a boy as well. Like, what did that guy say? Like sexual or something? When he was with
Eric?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
I almost died. Anyways, so there is a lot of like expectations. I think especially for like a hijabi, it's like, when I say this, I don't mean this in any sort of way. I'm speaking from like a Uyghur mom perspective, you know. There's like a line that you need to cross in order to be like a killing, like an acceptable killing, you know. And a lot of them, especially if you're like a religious mom, it needs to start by wearing a hijab, okay? So once you have the hijab on, you already like thought of as like the perfect, amazing girl, right? Alhamdulillah, our moms are really, really good, like in my community. Like they don't really judge and stuff like that. So they already see like non-hijabis and hijabis as the same level. But I know that in the world, there's like a lot of like, how do you say that?
Stereotypes.
Like it just no matter where you go, there's always going to be expectations you can't really exceed. Like for example, when we went to Turkey, me, Nas, and my sister, oh my God, like we were getting judged because my sister's not a hijabi, right? We're getting judged left, right, and center because I wear jeans, right? And not even like the tight, skinny jeans, like which is fine to wear, but I wear baggy jeans and I was still getting glared at, you know? And my sister, who's not a hijabi, was also getting glared at, you know? It's like there's expectations everywhere and it's really hard to like uphold them. We went and we stayed in like the Uyghur Mala, like this is like just Uyghurs, right? We didn't stay in the bougie part of Turkey. We didn't get that like experience, right? We just stayed with the, you know, and a lot of them were like full like niqabis and with the fobs. I didn't want to say that. Nurpari's type.
Let's stop right here.
Nurpari's type? Wait, who said Nurpari's type?
Wasn't it Lala's type? Was it?
No.
I remember when we had the meeting, Lala was like Nurpari's type.
Let me say it. Let me say it again. I said this in episode 1. I give anyone a chance. Personalities matter.
I know you give anyone a chance, girl.
In reality, inside.
Reason why we had gone was because there was a conference there, and I'm just gonna say it was an experience. And
it was an experience.
It was just like if there were 100 men, there were about 5 girls. The men there, even the youth, they're so like they wouldn't even look at us. If they look at us, I swear they would like wash their eyes out with bleach or something. You know, they can't look at girls.
That's so interesting.
But also the old men would just sit there and stare at you like.
And what happened to if they're judging you because you're not wearing hijab? Then what happened to lowering your gaze?
Yeah, exactly. And they also judge me because I'm wearing colors. Like you can't wear colors there. Have you guys realized that?
The group that we were with, they were low-key like extremist Muslims.
Oh,
like there was a point where there was a guy from Norway, like because this conference was like international youth, blah blah blah. So there was like people from all over the world, and then there was a guy wearing a cap. Like, you know, like a normal cap. God. And it had like, you know, the dukpa designs on it. And then some guy, some khiri adam, I think it was an imam or something, I don't know. He full on went up on stage, got the microphone, he's like, Bundaq şapkını giysen haram. Xitay zalimler giydi o düşmanın şapkası bu. Giymenler haram buldu. And we're just sitting like I swear the Turkey people were like, oh my God, that's interesting. But us Australians, like me and my
You were
boys,
like,
because I feel other
what?
boys as well. I'm just looking at like we're just like, what the hell's going on? And one of the boys that like came with us, he's like a qari as well, and his dad is the one of the imams of Adelaide. And even him was like, what the hell is going on?
He was like a boy, like he was like 80, bro, quarreling, like walking slow with his cane, with his white beard, his white hair, you know, like
He didn't have
he
a
goes,
cane.
okay, I
He was
remember him
old.
having,
He was
old, okay, he had
was old.
beard, and then he came up and he just like snatched it off his head, and poor man, he was like receding, so he was
Cuz, bro.
like he was wearing it for a reason, and then took it off, and was like, this is like what a kafir wears and stuff like that, and then we just looked at each other, and I was like,
That's
what the hell? And
actually so crazy. I'm really shook right
And
now.
I
Like,
feel
it
like what
was
he's saying
so-
doesn't really have any Islamic basis either, right? Like,
It doesn't.
Exactly.
Yo, our imam, the main imam of the Adelaide community, Absalam Dada, he is like the main imam. Man wears a cap all the time. He wears the exact same cap
like,
that the
it's
guy
not
took off
haram,
his
like,
head.
how wearing a hat to protect you
Right,
from the
right. You know
sun
what, guys? I think I
Basic
realized something. Thais drink water. Water's haram. Like water's haram, guys. Because Chinese drink water, so it's haram. Zoom is haram because it's Thais.
breathing
Crazy.
air is haram. Everybody die right
Haram.
now.
We should
What-
all just be dead. Slowly. End the podcast right now.
So bad, man. It was so sad because like we were so excited to go there. We're like, yes, we're gonna meet new people. We're gonna meet our possible wives or husbands. I'm joking.
Oh, okay.
No, 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 no,
Nasrullah,
no.
I see why you went to Turkey now.
Wow.
That's
No,
Is
no,
it
but
an
no,
international youth conference or international youth mingling conference?
Hey, I didn't try.
How's
Let's
that
be
going,
honest. She tried on me. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Guess who's back?
Hey, let's hear it.
Kill-
Let's hear the story.
Tell
She's
us.
not
I
gonna-
want to know.
Tell us.
I'm curious now.
Let's say you can tell the story.
What? I'm not saying anything.
One of you
She's not-
guys tell the story. Let's juice
Okay,
things
okay.
up.
So you know, us Australian, the Australian Uyghur boys, we're already like gassed. We're like, hey
boys.
boys, we're like the overseas people. And you know, that's the thing. If you're from somewhere else, if you're a 6 in your hometown, if you go somewhere else, you'll be a 12. Like you
Yeah.
know, it just
Oh,
adds bonus
boo,
points.
stop.
Because you're from somewhere else.
What are you
Because
Oh
it
doing?
my
was,
gosh.
Yeah, so us boys, we were already like, hey boys, we need to look good, dress good, this and that. And then like I think it was like an hour or 2 hours later, the Zira walks past us. She's like, hey boys, make sure you look good, yeah? All eyes are on you guys.
Oh,
I'm like, oh
joking.
shit.
I was just trying to say that I only said that because the only other boys that were there were like 50-year-old men. So obviously all eyes are gonna be on them. So
Shit, now that you take it like that, shit.
Nasrullah, after you finish telling the story, tell everyone your ideal girl. So our viewers, maybe one of them will be like, wow, like he's my type. And she'll hit you up since you're so ready to get married.
It's not even that big of a deal, but like for me, it like gassed me up as well. Like it put my ego got so big after that. Nazira later on comes to me, she's like, "Oi, Nas, there's a girl crushing on you." I'm like, "Wait, what?" I was shook. I was like, "What? What do you mean?" And she's like, "Oh, there's a girl crushing on you." I'm like, and I was kind of excited. You know, you get excited when something like that happens. And then Nazira that whole day, her Shahida, like another friend of ours, her Shahida, and I think it was one more person. It was just you and Shahida. Oh, okay, Nazira's gone. But yeah, so it was her and that other friend. They were like spent I think the afternoon or something just trying to get me to talk to her. They were full of like, even the boys got involved. They're like, "Hey, bro, she's here. Hurry up, come right now." And yeah, it was just funny. And then later on, we found out some stuff about that person.
let me say
Okay.
my side. So apparently she turned out to be an op, okay? Like not in a bad way, but she was just like,
She
I
didn't turn
love
out to be an
her.
op. She turned out to be a freaking gold digger.
okay, that an op, period.
What? How did you guys find out?
You know how we found that? Because she was talking apparently to me, my friend from Adelaide, and a guy from Norway at the same time.
So we had gone to the conference, right? And then like horrible, nobody's talking to us, all the girls glaring at us, whatever, okay? And then I'm not gonna expose her, but like my sister was like, I've had enough, and she just left, okay? She was just like, I'm not gonna stay
She said,
here.
"I'm out
But
of here."
then she said, I'm done. Okay, so my sister left, and then it was just me and Nas, and then the rest of the Adelaide like people, you know, Adelaide boys, whatever. And then we had like our race there as well, our president, like, yeah. So he came up and he was like, what happened? Like, why did your sister leave? And I was like, well, nobody's talking to us. There's like 60-year-old men that are staring at us. Like, we're uncomfortable. I want to leave as well. And he's like, no, you came all the way from Australia for this conference. Obviously, he didn't say this in a mean way, but he just, whatever. But he was like, you came all the way from Australia for this conference. Just stay, like, just stay. Your sister can go, but you have to stay. And I was like, oh, okay. So it was me and Shahida, which is like our friend from Adelaide. So we stayed. And then he went and he spoke to the organizer of the of the conference and snitched on the girls there and was like, you know what, your girls are giving my girls bad looks. They're not very welcoming. They haven't even spoken to them. Because the thing about Australian Uyghurs is we're very like mimanchilik, like, and so it was kind of just like a bit of a like a whoa, what's happening when we went there and nobody even looked at us, right? And then we expected to be like the exotic, cool Australians that everyone's gonna be like, oh, they have visas, like they have this and that.
Yeah, visa.
You know?
Oh my God, I can get my passport.
Yeah, it was a bit of a bruise to the ego when they didn't even look at us.
Yeah.
So then our president complained to theirs, and then he went to his girls and was like, what the hell's wrong with you? Go talk to the Australians. So then they all came, and the first girl that came to us and was nice to us was Nas's lover.
I didn't love her, she loved me, bro. Come on, don't just
Love her.
put that up,
Yeah.
bro.
Anyways, so she was super nice to us and she introduced us to everyone. And then she told me, hey, you know what? That guy over there wearing like the white shirt or whatever is kind of cute. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, he's my cousin, so that works out. So let me just like hook you guys up. And then I told Nas and I was like, hey, Nas, like that girl over there likes you. And he's like, oh, she's pretty cute as well. And then it went from there and there. And then we would be like, it was so funny. We'd all run away to the cafe. And the cafe would be like underground, and then the conference would be upstairs. So we'd be in the underground cafe hiding from the chonla, and the boys and girls would sit together so we wouldn't get cancelled by the chonla. And then we were just sitting in there talking, and every time they would hear like a man coming down the stairs or coming into the cafe.
Disperse, would literally disperse.
Gosh.
By the way.
Just to clarify, like again, another clarification. This is all a joke. This is all I'm putting.
Ladies,
out
he's
there.
single.
I'm not actually a fuckboy or a playboy at all. I'm the complete opposite. I'm actually known infamously known in Adelaide as the guy who always gets friend zoned. So don't do that.
Nasrullah,
Haram.
why don't you
Stop.
tell us? Listen, why don't you tell us your ideal type? Go.
What now?
I'm curious. Tell us.
Whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives me, that's my ideal type. Because that was a good answer, right?
Wait, so what did the girl do in the end that made her like?
She like scammed one of my friends to buy her like shit, and then like she was.
Oh
literally
yeah, that
playing
he bought
with
her
it.
an expensive bag.
Like
an
expensive.
Like
Ex-
8,000
like,
lira, which is not that expensive, but it's pretty expensive
bro,
for them.
8,000 lira. That's like
That
what,
is a
like
lot.
$300? That's a
800?
lot, fam.
Yeah, $800, almost 900, 800.
Then what
Oh
else?
my
Yeah, something like
gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It
And
was
she kept
bad.
saying to me, I want to come to Australia. I want to come to Australia. I want to get a visa. I want to leave here. Like, I want to go Korea. I want to go Japan. I want to go Australia. So that's why I was like, perfect. I'll set you up with my cousin.
So-
You can come there.
What I'm getting from this story is Nasrullah is just butthurt because some girl was using him to get a visa to Australia.
Why does it come back around to me?
I will say I've gotten a fair share of rando like Turkish guys in my DM. A couple years back, one of them asked to marry me over Instagram
Oh,
DM.
shit.
He was
Let
like,
me guess. They started with the ultimate
could've
risk.
been-
Tanışıp kalaylı. I bet you
yes,
they started
literally.
I
I
mean,
bet you
said
they started
that.
like that.
I literally
Yeah.
did not even reply because who even is this random man? Like, I was like, this was years back, so I was still a minor. I was in shock. He was giving like 30, 40 years old. And he was like, "Tanışıp kalaylı, unda bunda, like, smells bek çıraylık siz bek çıraylık gençsiniz." And then he literally stalked like my social media pages and he sent me screenshots of my own pictures. And he was like, "Bek çıraylık gençsiniz, unda bunda." And then
No
like,
way.
I was not really replying to him because creepo alert, like, you know. And then he in the end he was like, he asked me to marry him over Instagram DMs. I was
Oh my
so
gosh, Lala, look at you.
no, what can I say?
And
Yeah.
Nurpati just got hurt there. She's like, how come I don't have creeps messaging?
Let's
I'm joking.
talk
This is
about
all
how
okay.
Uyghur boys have no riz at all. Like,
Oh my, oh,
no riz at all.
They're so
Especially them creepy ones.
Girl,
I
they're
know,
all
like they give me the ick so quickly. Like, please
they're
stop.
so creepy. I think like it's especially when they like slide into messages and then they say something.
Nasrullah, are you okay?
No, I'm good. I'm good. Yo, I just said Uyghur guys don't have wrists. So I'm like, oh shit, they exposed me. Like, damn,
He
that hurt.
doesn't.
Nah, but we're not all like that. Not all guys are the same.
Nasrullah clearly has riz, guys.
Really? Nutali, are you
I
trying to
don't
say
do that
something?
haram stuff. I
Oh,
don't do that
Betty,
haram.
what are you trying to say?
I am halal.
I'm trying to
Oh.
hype up our guest right now. Like, we shouldn't bring them
Stop.
down. We should
Stop
hype
hyping
them
me.
up.
Oh my god. Oh my, y'all are gonna gas me up. Stop.
Okay, never mind. Just please forget I said anything. He's taking this way too far.
I think it's just like a lot of Uyghur girls get like slid into the messages by like really old, creepy Uyghur men. Like I know
Yeah,
Nurpet has
100%.
a fair share of like creepy old Uyghur men, and like literally there's like creepy old Uyghur men that I know that I've literally seen around the
Hey, why are you pointing at me when you said that? She was like creepy old men. I saw that, yeah. I saw that.
creepy old
Yeah.
man right here. I'm kidding. Anyway,
Yeah, there
Anywho.
was once this guy, and I'm gonna just sum it all up, but he hit me up after a wedding, and then I found out who he was, and I was like, yo, I'm 16, and this man was like in his late 20s, early 30s, and he was like cute.
I know. There was this when I was like 14 years old, this like 20 something man like messaged me on like one of my social media accounts, and he was like, do you know what next Netflix party is? And I was like, this was like during the quarantine era, you know? Okay,
Oh,
maybe
wait, I remember this.
Oh my god, he has Riz, like
no, he did it. I was so
What?
young, and he slid in. He was like, do you know what Netflix party is? And I was like, no. And
I love the face you're making. That face is
then-
like that's a good
And then
representation.
he asked me
No.
how old I was, right? He asked me how old I was. And so I was like very honest. I was like, I'm 15. I don't remember. I was like, I'm 15. I'm in this grade. And I was like, how old are you? And he's like, I'm like 27. And then and then I was like, oh, and I did not reply, but he continued to message me after that. Let's just not get into it. It was traumatizing. I literally
I don't
blocked
know. I
him
feel like
after
that's
that.
weird. I mean, honestly, older men are my type too, but not that old. But like, I like older guys. I don't
Whoa,
like
she said I want a dilf. She said, I
no,
want a
that's not what I
grandpa.
meant. No,
Hey,
guys,
I was
This is
just
going-
talking about my traumatizing experience with an older man, and then she goes, "I like older men."
Like, I like
Oh no,
older men.
guys, yo, chill. By older, I don't mean like that old. I just mean like a few years older. I don't, not that old. Hey, guys, stop. Why are you actually stop? That's stop. That's not what I meant. Okay, two things. The first one is it's crazy how big of a difference a guy's haircut can make on the way he looks. Like, it's actually crazy. One good haircut and they look so good. One bad haircut, it ruins everything. Two, so basically from what I've been hearing, Nasrullah, Nazira, basically what you want is you want to find someone who can be a good long-term partner, and hopefully that can eventually lead to marriage. Am I right?
Inshallah.
I'm okay with an arranged marriage, I can't even lie.
Okay, honestly, listen, I know where you're coming from
Well,
because okay, not like arranged. Obviously,
Yeah.
like Uyghur parents, they don't force us to marry each other, right? They're not like you have to. But I really like the idea of how Uyghurs introduce their kids to each other. Like if two families
Yeah,
are
that's
close
what
to
I mean,
each other,
arranged.
and one has a daughter, one has a son, because
Yeah.
I think that's good because if it's usually if one family is good, that means that their kids are usually grow up pretty well, from at least from what I've been seeing. So I really like the concept of that, So I'm always open. Like if my family's like, Nurperi, you should talk to this guy. Like he comes from a really good family. We've heard good things about him. Then I will. You know what I'm saying? Like I won't be completely against it. So I see where you're coming from. That's my point.
Especially because it's like a parent is going to be friends with that person before they set you up with their child. And then it just works out so well because of like the in-laws, like,
and they'll
like,
treat you well. You know that
really
they'll treat you
friends,
well
you know?
because
Yeah,
in like
exactly.
Uyghur culture, I think we discussed this in some of the previous episodes, but your in-laws are super important because unlike other cultures, we have a really close relationship with our in-laws once we get married, right? So
Yeah.
it's really important to make sure that you're married to someone who has good parents that will respect
I
you and
agree.
treat you right.
Yeah,
But
100%.
But
Agreed.
I think that is a good note to end on. A last piece of advice from our beloved Nurberi Khan. So with that, I would like to say thank you to our guests, and that concludes our 4th episode of Chit Chat and Chai. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to
Thank you for watching, everyone.
Thanks for having us. Bye.
subscribe, follow us on Instagram.
Like the video.
Bye.
Yeah, like, bye.
Bye.
Okay, that's it.
Okay.
She was
Whoa, she was like, nah, I'm
Goodbye.
done with
I'm
you.
ready to go
Like,
watch Puss in
fuck
Boots.
these Australians. Fucking never
I
told
need
me
to see
this
Puss in Boots
again.
now.
I hate
I'm sick of you guys. You too. Bye.
Oh,
Talk too much.
terrible.